So let's go over a different one. Let's go over this Peter Hemnes.
Okay.
Heims.
Hems. I would go with. He's a. It looks like a Norwegian man, so I'd go with Hemnes. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, here we go. Although I've learned that people's flags on chess.com are not always what they seem. This guy's probably telling the truth. It seems legit.
Yeah, well, it says Malta for me. So my fiance actually just started playing chess this week, and she like wants to change it to Ireland, but because we're in Malta, like she's stuck with the Maltese flag, and she's just a proud Irish girl. But I told her there's like been a running meme on our stream for like 2 years because like she's always wanted a Chanel bag, but I refused to buy them because they're obnoxiously expensive. But I told her if she beat me at a game of chess, which is obviously not like that hard, I'm not that good, but like she's never played. So she started the other day and she like played a few games and like her rating quickly like, you know, leveled out at like 150 or something. She literally didn't know how the pieces move.
Right.
And now she's literally playing every single day like the term. And I will buy the bag if she beats me in a game. But like Levy was offering her coaching because I put on Twitter. Anna Rudolph was offering coaching. Botez offered a coaching.
Oh
like
my god! Well, you
everyone's trying to take me down for the bag.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to answer this question from my chat, Fintan, and it's because it actually relates to you and what we're about to go over. So Jimpy Dev says, I'm planning to play the Slav and the Cairo. So Slav is against D4, Cairo is against E4, because they have similar structures. Does that make sense? Not only does that make sense, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Not only would that be huge for your chess growth, but it's exactly the kind of thing that will make you an expert in something even beyond your chess level. Yeah, so how many lessons have you done? I told you who I'm coaching. How many have you done total?
So I've done 2 with Levy, 2 with Anna, 1 with you, and 1 with Anna Kromlin because she's like nice. Even though I don't think she's like an official coach, or whatever. Like, but I just organized that because like she's on the EU schedule, and like, I'm just familiar with her stream. So I think 5-6 hours.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's our hope anyway, is like obviously we assign official coaches, but we hope that everybody will get involved from anyone who naturally connects with people and wants to do some streaming. So by the way, your template is looking sexy over there. Like
I got a new template made just for chess, but I actually just messaged my artist right now and I said I need a play because there's no like clean place for your name to be written. I could write it down where that play button is because that's usually the song playing. I got a new overlay made just for chess for guest streams because it's just.
Well, you've still got Anna. You still got Anna Chess up there in the middle.
Well, no, that's just because she subbed my stream. That's actually just.
Oh wow.
That's the last sub.
That's so
I don't
funny.
I don't have to program. But I can put your name in the play button. But I want to, like, I just have like OCD when it comes to these things. And like the last time was nowhere near, like it just wasn't good enough or whatever. But that'll update now. See, it's changed now because I opened up Streamlabs and it's the last person who subbed just there, Mark. But I'll put your name in the little white space.
I just think it looks great. I mean, from the last time we streamed, I mean, I'm rocking this, basically just full browser capture of chess.com.
Yeah, I don't know. The artist that I work with is great, and I just knew that if I gave her the opportunity to do something, she'd make something nice for chess as well. Because I'm playing chess like most days, even before the Pogchamps. What's up?
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, Danny from chess.com. So you said there's a few ways we can go, but it seems like you have a plan. So
yeah, well, I thought we could look at some past games. We could also I wanted to do maybe a little bit of what I did with Haftor at the end, which was maybe have you play your openings against me, not in an official game, but like kind of just sparring, and just sort of test out that you feel good about all the different ideas you're going to get. Make sure you feel good about the first stage of things.
I still don't know what openings that I want to play. Like I'm just like I've set a little bit but I'm not really like, I don't know. I just kind of I don't know. Like I'm not super set. Like I don't like anything that I play like when I'm back at all. Like I feel like it always gets.
Do we want to work on that a little bit? I mean,
the thing about it is like I know like I think you said this to me as well, and every coach has said it to me. I understand that like going in depth into opening theory is like not where it's going to be won because
for sure.
First of all, it's going to be hard to learn in a short period of time, and secondly, it's if they don't play back the way I expect them to, it's like you're out of that theory straight away. But if you have any recommendations, you don't have to we don't have to go through it. Like I can do it, like not waste your time with it, but something where the black pieces can get their pieces out quickly. That's not too easy for white to just shut down, because I started playing the Queen's Gambit again, and like I enjoy that because like most of the white pieces, I went on white, and the white pieces come out, and like I like looking for like openings and tactics where like I think people my level might miss. But on the black side, like I've just been playing the Cairo Khan, and
Right.
I don't like if it seems fine, but like I feel like I get like it's very very defensive. It feels. I know you're going to be on the defense when you're black more often, right?
Yeah, but and I agree with all that advice from other coaches. It's obviously when you and I had our first lesson, we focused on the end game for a reason, right? If I was giving every beginner like a path toward chess mastery, a lot of it should start backwards to forwards. You should start with some endgame principles and make sure that you have a set of goal positions in your head. That's why we do king on the sixth, pawn on the fifth. That's a even more advanced one than like basic checkmates, right? Making sure you know how to win the game when you're winning. Because just from a mindset perspective as a chess player, the thing that makes chess different than other sports or even other games like poker, right, is the lack of chance. Right? And so you can't always control that you're going to sit down from someone who's just going to kick your ass because they're better than you. You can't control sometimes if you get out on a wrong foot and maybe, got outplayed out of the opening, again, maybe by a better player. Yeah. But from like it's like a psychological, it's a mentality that you have to have a mindset that once you're winning, you have to convert on those games. Right? And so a lot of times end games is the first like literal X's and O's, realization of that mindset. We know certain amount of positions we can win, but then it also comes into more general concepts like understanding when you're winning, the desire to simplify, meaning like trade pieces, even if it isn't the sexiest trade, or even if sometimes you get a little bit worse end of the trade, you do it anyway because you're trying to take away your opponent's chances.
That's something that I've been messing up for sure. Okay. Because I feel like if you're gonna go through the games, I'm not sure like how many today. I'm not sure how many opportunities. I felt like I played a bunch of games today, and I felt like I was on the back foot a lot. But I definitely during the week had like lots of opportunities to win and just didn't capitalize. And like Chadok, who's in my chat, was like watching some of the games, and like there was definitely moments where like I could have traded off a rook for like a bishop, and then, like it just got rid of all of his threat. But like to me, that was like alien to like lose points. But like I was up so much that it actually didn't matter. I just got rid of his.
And that's a game against Shadok or another person?
No. He was just Shadok was just watching it, and he just messaged me saying that like you actually should have just traded off there, even though it's like it feels a little bit weird. But like when you're up so much material, like taking out there one thing that can counteract you with.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's not like people on my stream can see I've been using our archive tool where I can just click and then bring up all your games. So are you already in the live chess server right now? If you go
we'll go in now.
If you go to the live,
I was in puzzles. Yeah.
I'll invite you. So I brought up one of the games you lost as black, which was a Cairo, just so we could go over that. And if you like I said, I don't want to focus on games that you played today that you lost if it's gonna bother you. But you also won this game against Rook IE 8-1. Looking at
I don't mind at all. Okay. It doesn't bother me at all going over games that I lost.
Okay, let's focus on your black a little bit because you mentioned a couple of times that you're not so sure what to do with black. So I pulled up both an E4 C6 loss, a Cairo Khan, and a D4 D5, and just to go over it, right, just to get an idea of where we're at. So I'm going to invite you to the analysis board.
Perfect.
It'll probably just pop up for you when you get invited, and then I'm going to invite you also to the second analysis board. I'm worried it might mess up your screen cap on your stream, but we'll deal with that.
Oh, it should be fine. Okay, so
I just invited you to a second board as well. See how it does that.
So do I want to be on the Melina one or the Peter Hames one to start?
Let's start with the Melina one because it's a Cairo Khan, and like I said, whenever you have two tabs open, it bumps up your browser. So I'll let you fix that with your. Sorry, because I own chess.com, I always have to be forefront of pointing out the bugs or the issues. So I want to give you time to fix the padding issue. There you go. And it's not actually a bug. It would be, my developers would say, that's not a bug, Danny, that's a feature. But anyway, people who stream chess all the time and do analysis, just you get in the habit of the default. You go in and you open two boards right at the start, so you don't have to worry about it. Anyway, you ready?
Yep.
Cool. So let's do it. So you played a Cairo Khan. Now,
this all joking aside, I remember this game because when he did that, I was like, that's not something I've seen once before.
And he didn't play it with the I can just looking ahead. It's not like he played it with the kind of moves that I'm going to say he knew the theory. F3 is a move.
Yeah.
But obviously, the most standard operation against C6 is going to be to grab the center with D4.
Yeah.
And, and then depending on what happens.
I feel like this is like a really weird like opening because I remember just trying to like I could be wrong with not remembering the game correctly, but I think I like moved my bishop twice to like try and clear out his first. Anyway, but I'll let you talk. Sorry.
No, you're good. Your thoughts are more important in a lot of ways because it gives even more insight. But why don't I just play D4? Why don't you move the pieces, play black a little bit, just to see how you would go against a standard kind of thing. So I'll play knight to C3 like a main line, and just see how we do.
I would take this.
Cool.
I don't know if this is like theory correct, but this is just what I can do.
This is all good. It's actually all main line theory so far.
I'm not sure if I should push the pawn or bring the bishop back, but I'd probably push the pawn.
So this is so far you were doing all theory.
Okay.
E6 is not correct, and part of the reason is this is going to become an open enough position where you really want to value your bishop, and at least not for a knight. So in this case, you'd be giving up the knight for the bishop and doubling your pawns in the process.
Yeah,
so
it's
not good
compensation at all.
The main line here is to go bishop G6 to back up.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't sure which one. Yeah.
White will often play this move H4 actually to try to trap the bishop.
Yeah.
You just play H6. You let them attack, and you keep the bishop come hell or high water all the way back to there.
Yeah.
And after they develop, you develop this knight. And the most common idea for white is they still don't like this bishop because it's like a thorn in their shoe, especially because white's idea is to eventually castle long, and ignoring this piece, castling long, can lead to some tactical issues, right? So bishop to D3 is commonly played, and then after takes, queen takes, we have a kind of a standard position where you're going to play E6 and get your knights out, your bishop out, your queen out. This would be kind of how you would play.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense on the not trading the bishop for sure.
Yeah, so the first lesson, for sure, is to not trade the bishop, and but again, my general theory on all that stuff is it's not just about the specific move I'm telling you not to play, right? So yes, E6 isn't the move, but like you said, openings can be complicated. So many moves. Your opponents might play different moves.
Yeah.
Always focus on the idea behind the move, right? So in general, what I said was this bishop is super valuable to your structure. It's not a piece you want to give up for anybody but your opponent's light squared bishop. That's the only trade that would be equal. And so that's like a mindset idea that when you're playing the Caro-Kann, you'll value that. You're not going to go out of your way to lose this bishop. You're going to save it. So even if they didn't play H4 and they play something random, you would just go back to playing natural developing moves, but always have an idea in mind that this bishop is valuable to you. And if you can keep it, you want to. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, his knight's not doing a whole lot, and my bishop's like got a massive diagonal, so it doesn't make any sense to trade it.
And the moves after that, when we talked about developing, very commonly, this structure right here, let me just point out, this structure right here is actually called the Cairo-Slav structure. And it's because the two openings it occurs in most commonly are the Caro-Kann and the Slav defense against D4.
Okay.
So this structure is called a Cairo-Slav structure. And it's when you have the E6 and C6 pawns versus an extended D4 pawn. Now,
do you think the Caro-Kann is like a reasonable opening
100%.
For what I was trying to achieve? No, of course, no. Like I understand it. Of course, it's a reasonable opening because like it's like. But do you think for what I just like spoke about in terms of like trying to be on like trying to be able to develop my pieces like somewhat quickly as black, because like I found when I was playing the perk, it was like I was trapping my bishop in, it felt all slow, and then obviously you attack one way, and then a lot of things have to happen for it to open up. And like I'm sure the more comfortable I get and the more often I play chess, stuff like that won't be as complicated for me. But like the last time I had you on, I think it was either 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you like taught me a lot of good concepts about like the way the perk works, and then like I'd be randomly bringing pieces over to the queen side of the board, and you're like, just don't do that because like you're developing this way, you want to attack against the king this way. So I didn't like that defense though, because it just felt like slow and very defensive. But do you think is the Caro-Kann like a reasonable one to like be getting your pieces out? Am I just like not enjoying being black because it's harder?
I mean, so okay, yeah. So reset on openings. The reason why most beginner players start with e4, e5 is because if we're just talking the most traditional chess, fighting for the center equally, and both sides basically just develop their pieces. Like there's really not much to it besides get your pieces out, right? And from the perspective that, like, you know, what we said in the beginning of the lesson, that tactics will be the thing that really decides a game, and learning to not make blunders and think ahead, all the chess, you know, critical thinking concepts you're going to learn. Because we know those things should be the things dictating results at this level, it's usually very simple to just teach people double king pawn chess, get your pieces out. So the reason I'm hitting that reset is because even though the opening is changing with a Caro-Kann, the concepts of getting your pieces out, basic, you know, from a very straightforward perspective, developing all your minors and getting castled within the first 10 moves should be like the stamp on everyone's brain. Develop all of my minors and get castled before the first 10 moves, regardless of the opening we're playing. That said, the only thing that's different about openings that aren't e4, e5, or every opening is a little different in terms of where we want those pieces to get out to. So, like what I just said about the light square bishop being a valuable piece for you is important specifically for like a Caro-Kann, where you don't want to play a move like e6 and give up that bishop. So in other openings,
everything, just because the reason I like did this was like, obviously what you said makes total sense. I won't do it again. Like that seems like, but a lot of the times when I look, it's like you're not. I hear it a lot that you're not meant to move any piece twice if you can avoid it. And then obviously this is like moving a bishop twice, and I've developed nothing else. So that's why I wasn't sure what would be better into.
Great point, and the reason why is because white has already moved a piece twice to do it, so that's why why it's okay.
That makes sense.
And that's a fantastic principle. So what you're doing is like you're applying the principles you know at this level, and that's absolutely right. And I think that the next step of critical thinking is that, and I'll have a really good example of it. Let me think of an opening. Let me just show you. Okay, so like one example from the Caro-Kann that'll help this concept is an advanced Caro-Kann. If white plays e5, that's another move instead of knight to c3, right?
Yeah.
In this line, often what happens, and I'm just going to make moves here to show the point, is that with a closed center, white ends up trying to attack on the king side. And one of the things about that position is that this bishop, because the plan should always come along with thinking about how we develop our pieces, if you look at this particular structure, and this is actually a French structure now, but this is a structure where what we notice is that the bishop, despite having not been developed, or even moved once or twice, is actually fully developed right where it stands. Because of the pressure it exerts, and because, even more importantly maybe, from the c1 square it actually serves a very critical defensive purpose, which is to defend the b2 pawn, because black's main plan is to bring everybody out to the queen side to attack here. So the point I'm getting to is that like the principle you said about not wanting to move the bishop twice, it to me goes along with the same principle that I'm giving you here, which is when we look at a position, usually the pawns are actually the thing telling us the story of where our pieces should be. And that really applies whether the position is closed. They're telling you what side of the board your pieces should be swimming to, like that other game I told you. Swim toward your pawns. It's like swimming with the river, right? Yeah. And so people would say, well, what about openings where the pawns have been traded? Well, the pawns have still told the story, like in a king-pawn game. The pawns have just told us a different story, which is that the center is wide open, and that where the pieces are going to belong in this kind of romantic style game of open center is you're going to get your rooks in the center, your pieces in the center. So the pawns are still telling us where the game is, which is the open center. So it sounds, I used to say this a lot to when I was teaching kids because they loved it. I would say, your pawns are talking to you. You just have to listen. Just open your ears and listen to the pawns. And it's really is true, because a pawn chain is telling you something about where the direction of your pieces should go. So the reason I played a move like knight e2, even though knight f3 was also okay because I wanted to prove a point, was that where my pawns might go here is with f4 and f5. Like literally all of my pieces, and I didn't even put my knight in front of a square that might hold back my pawn. All of my pieces are telling me a story, which is I have strength. Strength, when you're teaching young players chess, sometimes we try to use as many terms as we can that make them feel like they get it instead of chess terms. So instead of saying space, sometimes I'll say strength, right, to show kids big muscles, right? And I say your strength is every square you control behind your furthest advanced pawns. That's where your strength is. Their strength is all the squares they control behind their pawns. And so all I'm talking about is space, right? So
of course.
And so what I'm getting to is, yes, we're on a bit of a tangent here, and it started with the lesson of, in this particular position, because of how the game is opened up, and because of where we might have the potential for pressure, this bishop is a more valuable piece than the principle of not moving it twice. And as you get better and better, you'll learn to make those exceptions. Like, of course, you don't want to move a piece twice because you have a goal. Get all your pieces out and get castled. But the particular plan of... But the reason I went on that tangent is just as much a principle is get all your pieces developed. Well, in this position, my point was this bishop is already developed right where it stands. So when we actually listen to our pawns, the principles take on a slightly different meaning. Our pawns are telling us where your pieces need to be. Are they developed where they stand? Do they need a different square? Do I need to be going toward my strength this direction because I've got space to swim? Or is the center wide open? So clearly that's where the fighting ground is going to be. So like I said, in the end, I'll say your pawns are talking to you. You just got to listen.
Okay.
Anyway.
I feel like I even though I said that about the reason I think in this game, like if we're going to continue it, I'm not sure if we are, but like I think I chased him around a little bit at the start if I remember correctly. I could be wrong though.
So let's see what happens. So f3, he plays a horrible move here, bishop d3, but it's also because you didn't play a great move. Well, you played a great move in a not so good move in response. And the basic reason is this. This is the kind of move that prevents your pawns from telling a story, right? And pawns in pieces in front of their pawns, bishops in particular, are the old lady who swallowed the fly. It's just one bad thing leads to another, which leads to more problems all around. So what you should have done here is just this move. Just grab the center. Big time. Just get a big pawn chain, because what he's done is blocked his ability to fight for the most critical area of the board.
Yeah.
So,
I can't remember what my logic was, but I remember not being too happy and then trying to like force a trade. I can't remember even how I did it, but like I feel like I go ahead.
So this move, but you understand why it's bad, right? Because it blocks this pawn.
Yeah, of course. No, like, and I know like it's easy to say it when I'm after doing this in the first game that you pulled up, but I do think if you enter my games, it'd be very rare that I block a pawn in with my bishop.
I believe you totally. So now you took after c3, which was kind of a cute little tactic, but he takes with the bishop. He sees it. And now you offer this trade. It actually works out okay. I mean, honestly, now that we're in this position here, if I was evaluating who's better, it's black, because you have the potential of two very good pawns in the center. And he's put two pawns on squares that all they do is fight the knight for their most active position. Yeah. So you were in good shape. b6 is fine. In some cases, you might want to defend a pawn like this with a piece instead of moving it, just because of the potential weaknesses it creates on the squares. It's not that big of an issue here because he lacks this guy, right?
Yeah.
With that guy, it'd be a serious problem. But without it, you're okay.
Yeah.
So very good. You get a big center. I love it. You take his pawn. Okay, fine. This is funny.
I wasn't meant to take that pawn, right? I feel like... it was a blunder. I think I looked it up and there was something that happens in the next couple of moves where like I could have like destroyed his.
Well, I think he's neglecting all kinds of principles in the process, right? He's literally has he moved any pieces here besides the queen, right? I mean,
no.
The problem is that even though you have the big center, without getting your pieces out to kind of support it, then you also have the same problem. So I would say that bishop c5 is a move that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Develops and defends the pawn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But okay, let's get past this and get to the middle game, because you developed. This was fine, very nice. You attacked his queen. This is great. Great initiative. And this is also good. I mean, queen e7 check, and he goes here. Now, if I had to say what to do, this is an opportunity where your opponent is down in development, essentially 2 moves. And you don't really need to worry about anything else besides your king. So if I was black here, I would want to get castled to bring my rook to the e-file as soon as possible.
Did I not do that?
And what's funny is he actually can't get the king out of the center, because he'd love to get... he can legally castle, but if he does, you have moves like takes with check.
Yeah.
Right.
Or I can even take
or you could
the
push
knight, right?
Well, you can't take the knight because the queen guards it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking if I no, I can, right? Because if I push the pawn and then it's in check, I take the pawn, right?
He has this move though.
Okay.
But no, you're on the right track. That's a great idea. Is to play d3. So yeah, in general, I think that getting castled quickly would have made a lot of sense.
Did I not? What did I do?
You played bishop b6. I think you were trying to open the rook.
I can't remember.
Also attack here. Okay, makes sense. Takes. Yeah. By the way, this is still a great position for you because if we're just comparing pound for pound, your bishop for his bishop.
Yeah.
Your bishop is a monster and prevents him from coordinating. His bishop isn't developed, and in this particular case, would really like to be on a more active square, something like this.
Yeah.
So let's see, where did this go wrong? So he played h4, and now you played h5. So why did we play h5? Do you remember?
I'd like looking at it now. I think I should just play h6, and it stops his bishop also coming to g5. But I was just very scared about the fact that his queen and rook on the them two can quickly attack, and I thought I could potentially move my knight out of the way and like attack his queen if it came over. I'm pretty sure this is what happens, and it just falls apart on this side of the board if I remember correctly now. But
so,
I'm not sure why I did it exactly. I was just trying to stop like what was incoming, but I obviously didn't do it very well.
Well, and time might have been an issue. Maybe you didn't have a lot of time.
No. Time. I don't think time. I don't think so.
Well,
like I very rarely get caught on time. Like so that's
okay.
I think
so
probably a bit too quick if anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep that up. I think that in general, when you guys are playing this tournament, a time advantage is very important, right? Okay, what's on the board is most important. We can't.
Of course, of course.
But it's important. Okay, so let me just say that in general, and I remember feeling this way a little bit at the end of the last lesson. You only played a couple games, but I do think you're very good at you're very aware of your opponent's threats, and so you do react sometimes well in that case because you're thinking about what's coming for them. You're like you said, you're really worried about their attack. But I also think that there's a difference between recognizing pressure and seeing ghosts, right?
Yeah, I did say I see a lot of ghosts last time for sure.
And that can happen, right? And I think part of the way you avoid seeing ghosts is you take proper stock of what's good in your position. Meaning, like, I think your position is almost winning here if you start being the one with aggressive moves, especially because his king can't get out of the center, like not even legally anymore. Moving the rook completely imprisons the queen because if she was to ever leave protection of the knight, you're winning on the spot with a move like this and checkmating them. You don't have to see those kind of tactics.
Yeah.
But recognition that his king is in danger, rook e8 prepares another move next. Like if they do, continues with something silly, now you bring another piece in, attack the rook, and you're trying to bring more pressure into the center against his king.
It looks so simple when you do it like this. Like it's like because when I see it, I'm like, obviously this is like chess is like a beautiful game and it's so complex, right. And it's like it's the same as poker in the sense that it's so easy to learn the rules and then it takes a lifetime to master, as they say, or whatever. But like when you do things like this, I'm like, why do I not see that? Because it doesn't look like something that's beyond my reach to attack. Just to
I
attack
understand.
his
There is maybe you'd have to equate it to poker. I mean, is there like a tipping point, what you would relate back in your early years? I do believe there's a lot of right now you're kind of drinking from the fire hose a little bit, right? It's just spraying everywhere. You're trying to catch as much as you can, and but it's hard.
Sure. And I think definitely, but the difference I think with poker now, I don't know if there's much meta in chess where the game flow evolves and different strategies get implemented. I know they will to a certain degree, but I don't think it happens as quickly. Whereas there's certain strategies you're learning in poker right now, and in 5 years they'll just be outdated because computer power is catching up with the ability to solve the game. Whereas I think chess is a little bit more solved, and there's not that drastic movement. So things that I learned 5 years ago, if people did them now, you'd just be they're terrible, So I don't think it's I think it's a little bit different in that sense.
Okay,
but
that's interesting.
There is similarities as well, though, of course.
Okay. Well, I think chess is very much a game of pattern recognition, and so part of it just sounds easier to someone else because they're speaking a language much more fluently than you are, right?
Yeah.
It's someone's just learning Spanish and they're standing there and they're like trying to say a couple phrases, right? Someone else is just speaking fluently, right? I think that that's the most proper comparison for chess. A lot of people want to compare it to like math in some ways, where like it's there's basic math in chess, but I actually think when you get to the point where you're reading the board, it's just fluent. And part of that is knowing where the correct emphasis on the wrong syllable is, right? The right emphasis is on, in this situation, white's king in the center, and the potential tactics there is a serious problem, much more than white can justify doing something slow with a pawn or anything else. And so I think, how do you learn that in your games? I think, part of it is just this experience you're getting right here, right? Which is just, it's just one step at a time. I will ask you this. So when you play your games on chess.com, do you ever take a second to just look at the opening tree where you left opening theory?
I was doing that prior to I always go to the analysis after every game now, so I don't look at the tree, and but I have it turned on so that it shows me the where it should go. The thing is, I just haven't been getting too fixated on the openings because I didn't know what I wanted to play, and I went through playing I think the Perk. Then Levy recommended the Stonewall to me, and then I changed that, and then I changed the Cairo. I'm not really settled on anything, so I haven't been wasting. Yeah.
That's okay, and that's part of it. I would say right now, the thing I recommended to Thor and I think at a certain point here, you really just want to commit, and I'm not going to be the coach who tell whatever it should be, because I just don't believe that it really matters. But all that does matter is that you make a commitment and you stick with it, because you're hurting your own pattern recognition growth, because you're facing new positions all the time, right? And so
I thought that was a good thing. So obviously it's not. I thought, because I was like, why?
It's not a bad thing.
I don't know what my opponents are going to play, right?
It's not a bad thing in the grander scheme of things. I know, every opening, right? I have some more.
No, I know. I'm not going to learn. I don't know any openings at all.
But here's what I'm saying. It's right now. It actually is hurting your growth, and the reason is that part of the jumps that are made are when you start to see not just the same opening, but the same types of pawn structures that come from that opening, the same types of middle games that come from that opening. So suddenly you're making higher level decisions because you've seen the position before, right? And not just once before, but dozens of times before. And so with younger players, often we give them a repertoire to stick to. When I say younger, you're young in terms of chess, right? Because it allows you to develop pattern recognition, because you're working on so much other pattern recognition. You're working on endgame pattern recognition. You're working on puzzle pattern recognition. So it's too much for the brain to also be developing master approach to openings, especially because you're a human being. It's not like you're doing this as a profession, right? So I would say let's stick to one thing. And the reason I asked that question is because you can click on you can
show the line. I have it open, but it shows the lines
Oh, okay, on your stream. Yeah. You can click on the line in the notation. In the notation, you can go to Opening Explorer and whatever. And the reason I asked that is because if there's one thing you could do after every game, before you just hit that rematch button, because you know how it is. It becomes like an addiction, right? We lose and we just want to play rematch or whatever. Click the opening name, go to the Opening Explorer, and just see where the game left theory. What theory is the move that was most commonly played. So that's all you're trying to do. And then maybe you
it stops saying book move, right?
Yeah, where it says book move. And you might spend 30 seconds on that, right? Just understanding, because all you're doing is building a mental stepping stone, which is just, all right, okay, when I get this position again, this is the most common move. This is the move I played. If you have a couple minutes and want to actually look at it and see, maybe you can discern why the other move was better. You might be able to do that on your own. But even if you don't have a coach nearby, or even if you don't know why the opening move is better than your move, it's still just a good, it takes 5 seconds. And if you do it, at first you won't notice a difference, but I'm telling you, then the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th time you're getting this opening,
you're just going to learn the pattern.
All of a sudden you're on move 15 of opening theory, and you're playing it correctly, and you're getting better positions than you would get, right?
Yeah.
And
100%.
Sorry, I just kicked my own speakers down there. Anyway, so let's go over a different one. Let's go over this Peter Hemnes.
Hems. I would go with. He's a it looks like a Norwegian man, so I'd go with
Yeah.
Hemnes.
Hemnes.
Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, here we go. Although I've learned that people's flags on chess.com are not always what they seem. This guy's probably telling the truth. Seems legit.
Yeah, well, it says Malta for me. So my fiance actually just started playing chess this week, and she like wants to change it to Ireland, but because we're in Malta, like she's stuck with the Maltese flag, and she's just proud Irish girl. But I told her there's like been a running meme on our stream for like 2 years because like she's always wanted a Chanel bag, but I refused to buy them because they're obnoxiously expensive. But I told her if she beat me in a game of chess, which is obviously not like that hard, I'm not that good, but like she's never played. So she started the other day and she like played a few games and like her rating quickly like, you know, leveled out at like 150 or something. She literally didn't know how the pieces move.
Right.
And now she's literally playing every single day like the term. And I will buy the bag if she beats me in a game. But like Levy was offering her coaching because I put on Twitter. Anna Rudolph was offering coaching. Botez offered a coaching.
Oh
like
my god! Well, you
everyone's trying to take me down for the bag.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to answer this question from my chat, Fintan, and it's because it actually relates to you and what we're about to go over. So Jimpy Dev says, I'm planning to play the Slav and the Cairo. So Slav is against d4, Cairo is against e4 because they have similar structures. Does that make sense? Not only does that make sense, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Not only would that be huge for your chess growth, but it's exactly the kind of thing that will make you an expert in something even beyond your chess level. Right, so it's like someone reaches 1600, but like for some reason, whenever they play like a Slav and a Cairo because they've been playing it for years, they're even better. Hikaru won, by the way. Does that mean he won the finals, the match?
The first mini match. It's 7 days of mini matches, right?
Yeah, I think he might have won today's mini match. Interesting. Okay, cool. So in this game,
it's so amazing. By the way, I know we're getting off the putt, but it's put on Twitter on. Like it's actually incredible that Hikaru streams on chess like so regularly and like ranked #1 in Blitz in the world and obviously one of the top, you know, just online players in the world in general. And like it's just crazy that he comes on and then talks about his like in-depth thought process of what
it's
he was
crazy.
thinking.
No, I don't think
Carlsen. It's wild.
People really don't understand. I think from the traditional chess community appreciate like how rare that is for other esports and gaming. Because like it's like you think of guys like Ninja, who was by far the most popular Fortnite player, but even in like his top prime, he probably was never top 10, and very quickly wasn't even really top 20 or 30. Right?
No,
but he was by far the most famous. Like for Hikaru to be competing at the level he is and be streaming like he is pretty nuts.
You know, it's amazing.
So just to use one example of Ninja and Fortnite. So you're right. All right. So d4, d5, knight c3, c6. This is actually exactly what you should be doing. This is a Slav defense. The problem is your opponent played knight c3, which isn't good. So let me play what White would normally play. That's what chat was saying too, just to see. Someone from your chat is saying I should be coaching your fiance as well. Try to get in on this. Help her get. You said it's a Chanel bag. Chanel bag.
A Chanel bag. Yeah.
Chanel, okay.
It's I think it costs like $4,000 or $5,000. It will make me feel physically ill.
I can't be supportive of this. I'm sorry. I don't even know her name, but I'm on your side.
No, I think it's outrageous. Like, I think it's outrageous.
Yeah, we're not.
But it's because I've been doing reasonably well in poker the last year. So like every time I have a score that's, you know, for like a decent chunk of change, everyone's like, "Oh, you got to get the Chanel bag now," and I'm absolutely like flat out refusing.
It's a matter of principle. It's a matter of principle.
It really is a matter of principle.
And
the problem I know we're getting off the chess lesson, but this is a man who's alt married and like he can speak some knowledge to me here. But the problem I have is that I just don't think it will be one. If it was a once in a lifetime, maybe I could get behind it. But I just feel once you like give in and lift your foot up, it's like the floodgates have opened. It's like, oh, it's my 30th birthday. It's my 40th birthday. It's our 20th wedding anniversary. Oh, I want another Chanel bag. And it's like, we can't live in the Chanel bag. You know?
It's a slippery slope. I will tell you that.
I think
as a married guy. And
I
will say though, this actually currently is more relatable to my kids because once you have kids, and I don't know if you and your fiance have any plans for kids, but
we hope to, yeah.
So once you have kids, it becomes less of. I will say that. So you don't have, usually, at least for my wife, it's like we're very much just like unified and things like that. Like we don't have these things anymore. But like with your kids, I have a 14-year-old, bro.
Okay.
Like he wants everything, and everything is super expensive, right?
Yeah.
So once you like give in and like upgrade them to like an iPhone 11. Like it never ends, right? And it's like, so I know exactly what you're talking about. So at some point you just have to be like, no, you know.
I agree. But I will stick to my word. Like if she beats me in a game of chess, because I think it'd take her quite a while. I went onto the elo calculator, and I was like working out like the probability of her beating me, like taking
That's
out the
funny.
emotion. So I was like, what are the odds? And I think it's going to take her like at least like 6 months to a year if she plays a lot, because I'm going to keep playing and like
Right.
hopefully I get better. But yeah. Anyway, last question about did any of your kids get seriously into chess when they're growing up, or did none of them take to it?
No, no. So I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I have 4 kids.
Okay.
My
You
8-year-old.
can't buy them all iPhone 11s.
No. Well, my 8-year-old, and no more kids, by the way. We are done. We're done. We're so
Okay.
done.
Okay.
We're done.
Okay.
Done. But my 8-year-old Hazel, so I have 2 boys and 2 girls. The 2 oldest are boys. Boy, boy, girl, girl.
Yeah.
I feel like Hazel might be the one with the potential
Yeah, she really enjoys it.
to really rock it.
Okay.
But none of them have really got. And the boys and I got into sports, and we do all, we do
Yeah.
basketball and baseball, and soccer. We do all kinds of stuff. So it just didn't work out. And I think if one of them chose to be into chess, they would have gotten. They have a good dad for that, but it just was never my philosophy to kind of push it if they didn't want to.
Yeah.
But so my niece recently, who funnily enough, so it's my wife's brother. When she was born, she's only 5. Me and Luke, my wife's brother, we shared an office at the time, and and he works for a different company now. He's a developer, JavaScript developer for a different company. They moved, but she and I have started doing some online stuff together, and she's a freaking intelligent little child. Like, she might end up being my chess prodigy, my niece. I'm super into, like, and it's easier.
I know you wouldn't want to push it, but I'd say you'd love it if you did have someone in the family.
It's easier
like
to want to push it and maybe even cross that kind of mental, verbal, like, abuse line with someone who's not your kid. No, I'm kidding. No, like, she's so into it, dude. The other day, she's already beating Luke. She got king and queen versus king and rook, which is a super complex ending, and she couldn't win, and she was so upset. She started Googling how to like win.
It's actually funny because that was me, and so I had that exact spot, and obviously it's quite rare. And Anna went over with me, and like she made me find every move without telling me until I found it. Like, we sat there and like I was like, because I think Anna's like the nicest person in the world. I don't think I've ever heard a bad word come out from her. And I realized there's this sadistic side to her where she enjoys that
we all have
pain
that.
of watching me struggle.
What you don't know is that all of us are, regardless of our personalities, I'm the chess dad, Anna's a sweetheart, like, but we all have a little something in us, which is that we were all, to reach the level, you don't reach like the title level of chess, international and grandmaster, without having a little bit of that abusive Soviet chess coach in you. Everybody has it in them, some more than others. So back to this. So you played black. If you had played C4, if you had faced C4 instead of knight C3, how would that have gone? What would you have done?
If I had played this, the truth is I'm not 100% sure. I probably would have developed my knight on G to F6, but I don't know if it's right.
Did you move that on the board?
Because oh, sorry, you want me to do it?
Oh no, you don't have to.
I would probably just go here.
Okay, so that's a good idea, but the first thing to do whenever you're facing a Queen's Gambit is to defend the center pawn with another pawn. Yeah. And the move I want you to start playing is C6.
Yeah.
So you recognize this move. This is
it's what people do against me all the time.
Right, but it's also a Cairo Khan move. Meaning, I know it's not E4, right? But this structure here, as far as the first 2 moves, is essentially the same thing I'm telling you to do against D4.
Yeah. I think I did do this in a few games, but like then I didn't do it in other games. I don't have, like I said, I don't have anything that I'm against the King's Pawn opening. I was just playing the Cairo Khan, but against the D4, I like was just doing different things and trying to like not get myself tied up and block my bishops in and stuff, like, essentially.
Yeah, and so that's good. Let's talk about this opening, and this is something you're gonna face in the Pogchamps, but also
I face this all the time when I play Queen's Gambit.
So let me actually give you like a repertoire to follow here. And yes, everyone, I do read chat. We're just focused on the lesson here. It's about Fintan, not chat. But I did see the news about Hikaru beating Magnus. That's cool. So
yeah, it's amazing.
So here we go. The idea. So first, let's understand the philosophy of what our opponent is trying to achieve. When they play D4, D5, and C4, their goal is to sacrifice a wing pawn in the hopes that if it's ever captured, whether on move 2 or on move 15, they're going to eventually get a big center in exchange for that because of the center pawn you sacrificed, and probably win this pawn back along the way, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is it is a gambit, right? They're gambiting a pawn. That's why it's called the Queen's Gambit. But they're
Yeah.
doing so for positional interest, and maybe they earn the pawn back, like we said, with dividends, right? So
Yeah.
this is the idea. Now, I'm oversimplifying it. There's all kinds of things you can do as someone playing against it, including even taking the pawn. But the most principled approach, and the approach that is going to be perfect for your repertoire to stick with, along with the Caro-Kann. So I know I said I wasn't going to be that coach, but I'm just going to be that coach for a minute.
No, I needed a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, let's stick with the Caro-Kann and this for the foreseeable future. Okay.
Okay.
So
the other problem I have, like, I'm just going to be honest, is like now that like you know I'm going to play that and everyone knows I'm going to play that. Like the reason I was like playing loads of different ones is because like if my opponents like just deep dive and study, and like I don't want them to be able to just know exactly what I'm going to play and they learn like 15 moves that like, you know.
So first of all, like let me just say like that's literally, I know that, you know, everyone remembers like the infamous 6-move loss by XQC.
No, dude, I didn't like that's not
okay. For the most part, that's really just like not a thing in chess. Like people preparing against openings. Hi, Kitty.
Okay.
Is not a thing, because the way I try to tell my students that is like, if there was something inherently wrong with the opening, like of the Slav or a Nimzo or a Caro-Kann, then top grandmasters wouldn't be playing it, right? True. If the world's best chess players with access to the most efficient engine resources and neural nets on the planet haven't busted an opening, it's playable. And so the reason you would be losing is only because of like blunders that we can make on our own side, right?
Yeah.
So it's just an important.
That's what I'm afraid of. That I will blunder. Like
if I had like, dude, if I had every chess dad in the world here, I would sit them down and give them a stern talking to. Chess dads are the worst at this because they end up learning just enough to screw their kids up. They don't know enough to like make any positive difference. So what they do is they become obsessed and instill paranoia in even sometimes their talented youth, that they should be worried all the time about people mapping out their repertoires and secret stuff to do and this and that. And you end up spending so much like emotional and mental energy just on things that don't matter. Because again, like everyone in the world knows what Hikaru's going to play. Or like that Vichy is a Nimzo Indian player and he plays it every time. And
it's like good luck, get through.
You get what I'm saying? So
I'm not paranoid anymore, Danny. I'm a Slav. And I'm a Caro-Kann player from now on.
You are
and
a
I'm
Slav
Queen's
Caro
Gambit
girl,
on the
and this is a Slav Caro world. Here we go.
Perfect.
So here's what you're doing with C6. So we handled the philosophy of what C4 wants. It wants you to take and give them a center. And by the way, this right here is the answer to why Knight F6 right away is not a good move. Because if what I said is true, that all they want to do is trade these two pawns to have a big center, if you play Knight F6, what move should they play here?
Well, they're going to take my pawn or retake, and then they push the pawn.
Exactly. Boomtown. Population U. Look at you. You're just... Every time I ask you things, you get the right answer. It's one of my favorite things.
No, that's not true, because you asked me a moment... don't be trying to butter me up. Don't be trying to... Like, listen.
Okay. So it's very simple. The reason Knight F6 is a bad move is because you basically give them the goal of the Queen's Gambit without even taking the pawn, right? You just give it to them. So you take... I mean, if you took with the Queen, it'd be the same thing. They just go here first. They'd attack you and get a big center, right? So now we understand why we're playing C6. As you probably learned by dealing with me, I talk a lot, but I'm big on you remembering the philosophies of our lesson, not just the moves. So I'm not sitting here and abusing you, Fintan. Just remember, D4, D5, C6. It's not a memorization game. It's an understanding game. So
I won't forget the bishop that we done on the previous open, like why we shouldn't trade it. Like,
and now you won't forget why we play C6, because if you understand the goal of the Queen's Gambit would be to bait you into this, then you understand why you don't play Knight F6 on move 2, because that basically gives them their goal. Now it makes sense philosophically that the reason we play a Slav defense is we're trying to reinforce White's big center with a pawn. So if they took it, you would take and you would have lost nothing. You've maintained 100% equality in the center, and you're good for the fight. So that's why we play the Slav. Now, back to my guy, Jimpy Dev, who's still in chat, and the guy who made me realize this was a great idea for your repertoire, which is one of the things about this structure, though, is if you remember in a Caro-Kann, so let's go back to that. What structure did we actually have in that game when I was quizzing you, and we got to here, takes and takes, this structure here, the D pawn is gone, and the E pawn is gone, right?
Yeah.
So it's not exactly a C pawn, but as far as what you end up getting, what I talked about in terms of your structure, this right here, remember what we called this? This is called a
Cairo Slav or Slav
A
Cairo?
Cairo Slav structure, exactly. So take a look at that, right? We input just the pawns, just those three.
Yeah.
This pawn is actually irrelevant. You have a Cairo Slav structure, whether it's a C pawn or an E pawn that remains. So when we go back to the Slav, one of the things that can eventually happen here is at some point down the road you've defended, and so they bring out another piece, you bring out another piece. Sometimes they'll bring out another piece, and now you've reached a critical moment where you can continue to defend, or you can even play an aggressive move, which is the mainline Slav, which is to take here. So now, why am I breaking the rules? Well, the reason I am is because in this particular position, what you're saying is, best case scenario, if they win the pawn back, you actually still have a Cairo Slav structure, which we haven't really discussed the philosophies of how to play that yet, but we will. Meaning, if you imagine this position here, that's a Cairo Slav structure. But also what the c6 pawn does is says, yeah, you were bluffing for a while, or you were baiting me to take to get the big center. But you know what? If you play e4 now, I might just hold on to that pawn and keep it. And if you attack my knight, I've actually got a very good square in the center. It's an outpost square supported by my pawn on c6. So in this particular position, black is actually up a pawn and has managed to hold on to the extra pawn. Now, that's not even something you have to do, but what I'm trying to point out is that the type of things you're going to want to do in a Cairo Slav pawn chain are going to be the same in a Slav as they are in a Cairo Khan. What are they? I'm glad you asked. Now I'm going to show you. What are the things you want to do? Now we get to do Pawn Structure 101, Danny style. This is going to be fun. Ready for this? You ready for the magic? The magic happens.
The magic. I mean, it's Friday night. Oh, it's Friday morning for you, I guess.
The pieces are gone. You see that? I just took the pieces off the board. I want to know if you noticed that. I thought it was funnier than it is, apparently. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to set up this pawn structure. Sometimes, in order for us to learn the big picture in life, we need just the pawns. We have to see the forest through the trees. Remove all the extra noise and just focus on the pawns. This is going to be fun.
Okay.
I haven't done one of these lessons in a while. So I honestly have stopped caring whether you're having a good time, because now I'm having a good time.
I really I love all the lessons that I'm getting. Like, I really do. But I also like, you've given me, like, I really like when I get given rules, and it's like there's no breaking the rule. It's like, just this is what happens every time. I understand that some stuff is like not subjective. Like, there's like situations where like you have to break the rule, and like as I get better, I'll understand that. But like I like solid rules. Like, I like just basic principles that, like, because I don't have any of them, right? I only started playing chess 6 months ago, and it was all through my own accord. It was like not watching any content. It was just like trial and error. So like, to like have like this, like, you know, basic stuff that, like, I'm sure to like some people in the chat who are good, it's like boring, but like to me, like, I love this because it's like, you know, it's going to help me get a lot better.
Well, one thing I would add to that, it's almost like what you're learning to memorize is not moves. You're learning to memorize rules and ideas and principles and guidelines, right? And eventually, yes, you will have memorized enough of these maps, right, that you learn the shortcuts, or you learn when the back road is better, right? That's the comparison. So right now what you're learning is all of these sort of, you know, these principles, and then they'll come together. So take a good look. Forget where the pieces are on the board, right? We can use our imagination of where the pieces might be. They could be on the back rank, or they've developed somewhere. But if we're just talking about the pawns, here are the different things that can happen in this structure. Inherently in this structure, whether it's an E pawn or a C pawn, you see how I just moved that over? It can be an E pawn or a C pawn.
Yeah.
Either one. So in this structure, black inherently has less space, right? If we're talking just chess strength, white has a further extended pawn, therefore owns a little bit more than black does. That's not inherently a bad thing, but if what that does mean, like when we take like the big, like, Aaron Nimzovich chess philosophy step back, it means that if both sides have all the things they want, black will be a little bit worse, because white will have pieces like here, and then knights here, and bishop and rooks in the center. And so if what ends up happening is your opponent has better space, in theory that means they have more options. More options have more powerful pieces, and more powerful pieces get better tactics. So the reason we want to fight to change things when we're the ones being oppressed by space, is because if everything goes down that road, in theory we will lose, right? Okay, and again, this is chess philosophy. It's not always this way, but that's the idea. Now, with that said, one of the issues for white is that, yes, white has more space, But sometimes the further advanced pawn means that that pawn is more of a target than the other pawns. So black's position is actually more solid. This is actually a very common chess philosophy thing we explained. Someone has more space, another guy's position is more solid, meaning less weaknesses. So in theory for black, if black had rooks doubled here, and let's say white actually did have that pawn too far where it couldn't go back anymore. So now use your imagination. That pawn's on c4. We've got a couple of rooks doubled, ganging up here. Okay, you've got a bishop and maybe a queen on it. Maybe you've also relocated your knights to squares that target the center. So in some ways, the further advanced center can also be the targetable one, the thing that can be undermined in a given structure. Again, I'm giving you big picture chess philosophy here, right? But but you can start to approach every position like this, like looking at the space, looking at the pawn weaknesses, and how solid pawns are. So in a Cairo Slav, you are going to get this structure. And remember, this structure is the same even if this pawn's here. I want you to actually get that because it's very important for you as a Cairo Con player. This is also a Cairo Slav structure. The pawn just hasn't gone here yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just 100%. Just like this is also a Cairo Slav structure, or this is a Cairo Slav structure. The main point is you basically have this dynamic brewing. Okay, so in this dynamic, what are black's plans? Black's plans are, if the pawn is a target, you target it, meaning if one of these pawns has gone too far up the board, you might want to try to target that pawn. The most common plan, though, is that you will actually try to change the structure and liberate your pawns. Very commonly in a Cairo Con and in a Slav, you have a knight here, and does that knight have this square available to it?
No.
No. What's the natural developing square that you choose whenever this pawn is occupied? A square. For that knight.
With my knight or with the pawn?
With that knight. Let's say this pawn is occupying our knight's natural square.
D7.
Very good. So now imagine you have a knight on D7. What are two potential central squares that knight supports?
E5 and C5.
Damn, you're so good at chess. You are so adorable sometimes. So, E5 and C5. Those two moves are naturally supported by a knight. If you imagined you had a dark square bishop here, what's another square that bishop could go to that would also support both of those squares?
It would support both of the squares in one move?
Yeah, let's say you had that normal bishop. Where might you put it that supports both those squares?
D6.
God, you are so good at chess. Okay. If you had these pieces on the board, right, and you had a queen maybe coming to a square that supports it, it's very easy. In fact, from the starting position with a knight here and the bishop here, you're already preparing a pawn advance on this square.
Yeah.
And it's very easy. Okay? It takes very little effort. So we're going to back up now and add pieces, and I'm going to start showing you opening theory. I'm going to show you some of the most complicated lines that are being played by the top players, and what you're going to see in every queen's pawn game, I'm sure it was played today, if you go look, is at some point in a queen's pawn game, the D pawn, sorry.
For white.
I'm resetting the board first to the pieces.
Yeah, sweet.
At some point in a queen's pawn game, the D pawn for black was traded for a C or an E pawn. It happens in all these queen pawns games, or in a Cairo Con, and in those games, at some point, black liberated the position with a C5 or E5 breakthrough. It happens every day at top level chess, and so now let's do an example. So D4, D5, C4. We'll go E6. This is actually a traditional queen's gambit, but it's the same thing as a Slav. Knight here, knight F6, bishop G5. A very common move is B6, and after E3, bishop B7, the bishop develops, black breaks the principles and plays C5. They put themselves in a position to stop E4. They're playing C5 as a liberating move to change the structure in the center. This is called the Tartakower Queen's Gambit. Not exact move order, but basically the idea is you play for C5. Let's go with some, let's see, what is the best? I actually feel like I should just pull up a, I know why it's not letting me do what I want, because I forgot to check legal moves only. Sorry. I'm going to pull up, I'm just going to take a gamble. Someone like Fabiano Caruana, who plays on our site all the time. I don't know whether I'm going to find a game where he actually played D4. Okay, this is a Catalan. Sorry.
No, that's all good.
Wrong. I'm just trying to find a top player who's played this opening recently to prove it to you.
I trust you, Danny. But
nothing. I know you trust me.
You can prove it as well.
And I love you for that. But hey, Cairo, you're always playing E4 these days. All right, whatever. All right, I want to just find a top player's game with let's see. You know who plays this stuff all the time? Georg Meyer. He plays a Catalan. All I want to find is a Catalan. I'm deep down the rabbit hole right now. This is actually kind of fun to just have you sitting there tortured and waiting.
Listen, I was 15 minutes late for you after asking you to do the stream as early as possible for you, so you can take your time.
All I want. They're playing bench. Oh, they're all playing E4. This is really fun. I shouldn't do this. All right. Let me just keep showing you lines. And I'm gonna find just top level games. But the main point is get the devs on it. I can easily go find games, but it's not in the live server. The live server is what I was trying to do. If you just go to the opening explorer and scroll through, in fact, if I do that with you, we won't be sharing a board. But if you know our opening explorer, you know what that is, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so literally, if you scroll through games there, you will see this sort of principle in action. That at some point in our Queen's Pawn game, let me go back to the board we're sharing. I think it's the Peter Himes board.
Yeah, we're in. We're moving.
Okay. Wow. I just got a raid from Grandmaster Robert Hess with 313 people. Sorry, got to give a shout out to that.
Of course.
That's Grandmaster Bobby Hess. You know who Bobby Hess is?
Hess, the commentator?
Hess, yeah. He doesn't like when I call him Bobby. So I'm sure
I really enjoy it
from the audience.
I really enjoy his commentary.
He's awesome. He's the best, pound for pound. Thank you. Seriously, Robert. We'll catch up later and really appreciate it. If you're just tuning in, this is Easy with Aces, the one, the only, the myth, the legend. But he's just a man with a plan, which is to improve his chess game. And I'm here as his humble servant.
And play the Cairo
Khan. So we've been going over his repertoire and learning the Cairo Khan and the semi-Slav. So we're back to D4, D5, C4.
Hold on, sorry to cut across, but when you say the semi-Slav, because I'm going to obviously go look this up and try and so am I looking up the semi-Slav? Or am I looking up...
So when you start with this, in fact, if you look at the ECO that's being showed, it just says the Slav defense. At some point, the repertoire expands, and depending on the move order that's played, it may be referred to as a Slav or a semi-Slav, and I apologize for that. It actually doesn't matter. The term Slav is defined by this structure, right? The two pawns here. And what I want to get back to is this position, and I talked to you about the eventual goal Black has of possibly taking and challenging White's Queen's Gambit philosophy of the big center by protecting and holding on to that pawn.
Can I ask you one question if you're Queen's Gambit, because it's obviously the opening that I've been playing?
Yep.
So if we just go back one move before it's taken, is the idea in general, when we get this, because a lot of time when I look at the engine, I don't know if it, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but it gets mad at me when I don't take that pawn in the center if I leave it for too many moves. Can I draw the arrows?
Yeah.
So when I'm white, it wants me to take this pawn pretty sharpish. Is that, should I continue to do that or?
So no, I mean, it depends on the position. I think that a superficial engine running on a local browser, which is what most of us have, is generally very materially focused. And so it might just look at this as exactly kind of what I was saying, that if you don't take it, Black's going to take and hold on to the pawn, and the engine's like, no, I don't like that. Right? I don't want you to win a pawn, right? But this is theory. And White can play this way just like Black can take the pawn. You're not really making a mistake, but what I would say is a lot of times because White wants to avoid those lines, you may see White play a move like E3 early on to defend it with the bishop, just to make sure that that's not a variation they worry about. So what I wanted to get to really for you as Black is just taking a snapshot of this position in your head. Take a snapshot of this. You defended the center with a pawn, then you brought out the knight. This is the start of a Slav, and there are a lot of options from here. Including getting to the whole pawn structure lesson we just did. For those tuning in, you missed pawn structure 101, okay? But E6 is what you play.
Yeah.
And now let's say that white develops naturally. And we're just going to play some natural developing moves. We play the knight to d7. They play e3. Maybe we develop our bishop. And we get some sort of position like this, where both sides have brought the pieces out naturally. Is there anything about black's position that bothers you right now?
There obviously is something that I should notice.
Not necessarily. I'm just asking what you observe about it, because it leads to usually some things that people think about this stuff.
If I don't like, it's not in this move, but if he trades his bishop for my knight and then brings his queen to c2, it's like attacking that pawn, and I'm not really capable of defending it.
Okay, that's a good point. You really now that we've had enough time together, I'm allowed to say more aggressive things about your personality. You are focused on your opponent's threats in general. This is going to be a very good.
Well, you asked me. You did ask me to, like. I thought you meant, like, you said issues with the position, so I thought. But also my pieces are closed in.
Okay, that is more what I was looking for. But
my bishop's trapped. My bishop's trapped.
Okay, there you go. That's what I wanted to hear. And someone in my chat said it earlier. And I don't want you to take that the wrong way. Okay, it's actually a rare skill that I wonder if you've developed as like a natural prophylactic thinker in poker. Like, I'm dead serious, and I've done this with poker players, because you are, I think, part of like the risk reward, like pot calculation you're doing as a poker player. And forgive me if I'm overstepping my bounds, because I'm not you. But in general, a lot of your critical decision making is not even based on what you have; it's based on what you think the other people have. Am I right about that? Right?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So I think that sometimes that ends up. Ultimately, a lot of chess players, especially beginner ones, are completely the opposite. Where chess is one of the first board games. I hate even calling it a board game. It feels insulting.
Yeah, no,
chess is bigger than a board. But chess is one of the first board games that teaches, like, young people to think that they're not the only human being on the planet. Like, forgive my soapbox for a second, but it's really important, because, like, in Monopoly or anything else, your goal is just do your plan. That's actually all you can control. There is no other, like, give and take. And chess is like, holy bleep, like, I was so uber focused on my own thing, I just got my ass kicked because I didn't pay attention to my opponent's plans, right? And you don't do that a lot. You're very aware of what your opponents might do to you, and ultimately, that's actually a skill that a lot of people have a harder time developing than focused on their own kind of good things, just so you know. So, but it is something I've drawn.
It's a double-edged sword, though. Like,
the criticism I gave you at the start of the lesson of playing h5 in that game against that guy instead of just put your rook on the e-file and go to checkmate town, right? Yeah. It's just an example that I think sometimes you should, if you could give yourself any big picture feedback when I'm not around, if you're open to it, I would just look myself.
I don't have any ego. Obviously, I could never have an ego in chess anyway, but I don't have an ego in anything. Because
so I would just say, look, it'd just be like, I'm going to hear what I think you can be a little more aggressive at times. Like, recognize your opponent's threats, and then think about your plan sometimes with maybe a higher priority. Just you've got a different kind of balance to work out.
Okay, perfect.
And this isn't everybody, it really isn't. Like, literally in my lesson with Thor, I was giving him like opposite advice. Like, he was not being as cognizant of his opponent's threats as he should in some ways. Like, there was a common tactic he was missing where it was actually the same type of clearance tactic where his opponent made a threat and he was kind of too uber focused on the direct conflict of his plan and not some bigger stuff. So this isn't me just like putting a blanket coach thing on, I promise.
No. I just realized that you can defend that anyway, because I just take the bishop with the knight, and it was nonsense.
But okay, here's what I wanted to know is if you saw that this bishop was blocked. A lot of times people have a hard time with the Cairo Slav structure at beginner levels because they feel like they would love this position if I could just put my bishop out here. Right? If I could just put my bishop here or here, Danny, I'd be fine, right? I don't like
with the Cairo I do try to get that bishop out really quick.
But in a Queen's Gambit, here's the structure we're coming back to. So we've had some tangents. I apologize for that. But going full picture back to our pawn structure, here's why this is not a problem. Because in this structure, you are going to liberate and change the pawn dynamic. Remember we talked about it. At some point, you're going to make the trade. And you're going to bust things open. If you bust this one open, the bishop will be finding this diagonal. If eventually you bust this one open, the bishop will eventually get out. In this particular position, the main line theory is actually to take and then play the move b5 with tempo, followed by, no matter where the bishop goes actually, basically bishop b7. And what you're preparing to do is to punch c5 and open and liberate this light squared bishop.
Yeah.
This is
no,
like
I'm glad that you said it to me like that, because obviously when I was talking to you about the kind of opening that I want to play with black, I didn't like that a lot of them led to my bishop being trapped in some way.
I knew
like,
it.
Now that I know that this is a couple of moves away.
See how I went inside your head and I found that little dark corner where the thing that was going to lose you games in the future was hiding, and I brought it out? That's what I did there
go.
because I know that if I set you loose and say, Fintan, guess what, bud? Now you're a Slav player. You're going to be like all jazzed up, and then you're going to go get this
First
position.
game.
And here's what you're going to do. Ready for me to tell you how you're going to lose a game? It's going to be awesome. This is how everyone loses these games. They get here and they go, okay, I remember what Danny said, but let me get my bishop out first. This is what they say.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
So they get their bishop out. Maybe they even go to this square. But we're going to start with bishop f5. It's a very common trap. So you go here, and
okay, well, I would definitely do this.
Yep,
like,
and I know you would do that. I'm going into this is a sliding doors moment. I'm going in the other timeline that you were in, and I'm grabbing you back from that dimension, from that universe. Okay, so here we go. You would play this, and they would take. And you would be like, well, I'm going to take back. That's the whole idea of the Slav. Danny told me the reason we play this structure is so that it maintains equal. Plus, you wouldn't take with the knight because that gives them the Queen's Gambit idea, right? So you take with the pawn. Now they play here. And you go, all right, well, yeah, they're attacking my b7 pawn, and I develop my bishop, so I have to defend the pawn. Queen here would make sense, but they can attack with the knight, so that doesn't look good. If I defend with the queen here or here, I actually lose this pawn. I'm not going to undevelop my bishop to c8, so the most logical thing to do is b6. That's how we defend the pawn. That's what you would do. You did in the other game. Well, now they play bishop g5. They have a direct threat to take this knight and win the pawn. The most logical move here to play is e6, which defends this. You think it develops my bishop next? I've actually solved all my problems. And guess what, Danny? I'm better than you. I got my bishop outside the pawn chain. And guess what? You lose on this is a very common trap. Loses by force. e4. They gain a tempo on your bishop. You have to take it. Bishop b5 check. You go here, and they play knight e5, and the game is over. You're losing a piece. And it's all because this bishop is outside the pawn chain
familiar.
When it should be here.
I feel like this happens all the time.
This is like a universal like. How did he know that was going to happen?
I might accidentally play this. Like obviously, I might play the Slav by not realizing it, just from like the concepts that I semi-understood from the Cairo Khan side.
Right.
I do feel like this happens quite regularly. Where my bishop
and if not this exact position, this idea happens all the time. It happens to beginners all the time. Look, if you played bishop g4 instead of bishop f5, it's the same thing. They just go here first with a tempo, and you save the bishop to either square, and it ends up being the same thing. They take. You don't want to take with the knight because you give them even if they don't have it right away, you're giving them the center, so you take with the pawn, and you're thinking you're in a harmless spot, but you're not. They're about to crush you on the light squares. And it's all because this bishop is actually where it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be back here. So
bring the bishop home. Don't let him go adventuring just yet.
So back to the Cairo Khan is different than the Queen's Gambit in this way only. That the light square bishop does not need to get out in the Queen's Gambit. You got to be patient with it. What's the difference? Okay. The difference is the Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit, by definition, opens up possibilities on the Queen side that don't exist in the Cairo Khan.
Yeah.
In this position, just look at the main line. There is no queen to b3. Yeah. That's not a thing. Yeah. Do you get how I'm showing you not just the moves here, but the idea of why this works?
No, absolutely.
Okay,
like, awesome. I love it. I love being
the
taught
whole
this way.
thing here is I want you to like, if you embrace some of the stuff I'm showing you, this is worth like 100 points out of the opening. Just to stop doing bad things, like developing our light square bishop in the Queen's Gambit. Right? And knowing that even though it's the same structure in the Cairo Khan, in that line, I was actually telling you to value your light square bishop. You do want to get it out and keep it, right? Because the structures are a little different. But overall, the difference between... So it's actually two versions of the Cairo Slav that you play. You play the Cairo Khan version of the Cairo Slav, which is the E pawn has been traded for the D pawn. And in the Slav, you play the Queen's Gambit version of the Cairo Khan, which is that eventually the D pawn is traded for the C pawn. And again, on a positional level, the reason I was showing you that structural stuff is because eventually you start to get this and you start thinking, oh no, my bishop's trapped because those other principles are kicking in and I'm trying to override those, which is... So here's the next principle to developing pieces. Really what we're doing in chess is we're developing plans. The pieces are just part of the plan. And I know it sounds silly, and it's just one of Danny's tricks like he does with kids, like strength, not space. But it's actually if you embrace it, it's actually a very important critical thinking change, which is every opening has a plan. The pieces are part of executing that plan. And so it changes your mindset from a beginner to what you say is this. Okay, I don't know what to do here, so I'm just going to develop my pieces and get castled, and then I'll figure it out. Instead of, I don't know what to do here, look at my pawn structure and what is the plan here? Where do my pieces belong? And then develop them. It's just a different mindset. Make sense?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think if I could, like, this is like really like a situation that feels pretty familiar. But obviously, there's some stronger players to me in Pogchamps. But at the level that I play against people on chess.com, I feel like I do well in the middle game a lot, but in the start and then the end, like it is where like I went over with Anna in the last stream, so like we don't need to. But like it's like converting wins and like making sure I get into the middle on like a fair footing.
Dude, that's why I wanted to do this today, and I really did because I thought about the endgames we did last time, and I didn't know how many endgames you did with Anna, but I kind of figured you would. Anna loves endgames. I know her, and that's awesome. But so I was like, all right, we're not going to drown this guy in endgames. We need to switch it up. And I thought, going over some of your games, but really, this is the right sparring kind of approach. And really, for the next whatever minutes we have left here, I want you to just play black and I'll play white, and I'm going to play the Cairo and the Queen's Gambit, and I'm just going to quickly go through lines, and you do what you would do based on the principles I just gave you. And if you mess up, I'm going to quickly tell you why and tell you what you should have done, and then we're going to back up and do it again. We're not going to go any farther. Okay.
I know you have another lesson directly after this, so if you want to take a break, like 10 minutes for the end of 15
That's what I was
minutes,
thinking.
Like,
we would do like another 10, 15, and then I'll take a break.
Just do 10 minutes and then you get 20. No, even just do another like 6 or 7 minutes and then you have a 15-minute break, because like it was my fault for being a few minutes out.
Yeah, cool. And actually, Waga has Nicholas has the same link, so at some point he might just jump in our Zoom call. It would be so cute if all three of us were here. Okay, and then you guys.
Dude, is there any chance we need
crap?
I think you should make it an option now. I don't know if it's going to happen for this one, but I'm sure Pogchamps is going to continue because it was wildly successful. But I think if both players agree for in-game chat, because I don't think it'd be fair to force
to talk trash. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be like if both players wanted to chat on during the game. Like,
dude,
I think it would be
that is a great idea, which we will do right away. What we'll do is just if you guys agree, you have to dual stream. Like, you basically would do like we're doing here. You guys could like set up a dual stream, and we'll still do our show. But then when we kind of check in with you guys, we'll be like, let's see what Fintan and Nicholas are talking crap about now, right? That's a great idea.
I don't know. The only thing is, like, I just think I think it's a high enough pressure situation where a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with it. But
I don't think Hafa would want that. She's pretty competitive. She wants to win it, so I don't think so.
I know she wants to win. I've been watching her stream, and we were meant to be in the same group. I watched a few times, and like the only advantage I think I have on her is that she like takes her time a lot. But obviously with the increment, it's like, that like advantage is like decreased a little bit, I feel. But she seems like she's gonna. I don't know what the highest rated person in it is, but like she seems like she'll be a very strong like candidate to win.
I don't know who the highest rated person is officially either, but I agree. She's definitely jumped out as one of the favorites just because of how much time she's been putting in. I mean, she's been doing a lot of work, and I think who else? I think we'll see. I haven't even talked with Nicholas yet. Honestly, I think you're in the top 5 in terms of strength. And like you said, you haven't been getting out of the opening as well as you'd like, so we kind of tried to fix some of that today. I'm hoping you and I can get one more lesson in, maybe at the start of next week.
Let me just right now I'll say to you, but I put a schedule because I haven't been streaming poker at all, and it's meant that the momentum of my channel has been like down a little bit. I want to get back into it, but next week the days I'm going to be playing chess are Tuesday, Friday, and then the other days. So Tuesday, Friday are full days of chess, and then the other days are
Friday's the start of the event. Fridays is podcast.
Wait, so did the game start on Friday? Like, I
don't know if you're playing, but
okay.
Friday's day 1.
Okay, potentially playing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you could potentially be playing. And Tuesday's kind of a tough day for me unless you're willing to go late, because I have to do the Speed Chess Grand Prix, which is like our biggest weekly event where all the top grandmasters play. So I cover that from 10 a.m. till about 1 p.m. Pacific.
So it would be, 3 hours?
So it would have to be after that. But
let's work it out. Let's work it out.
All right, cool.
We'll work it out.
All right, so before we leave this position here, remember the last big kind of insurance policy to give you about your thought process going forward. We went over a lot today. I talked to you about pawn structures, talking about the differences of that pawn structure, the Cairo version of the Cairo Slav and the Slav version of the Cairo Slav, right? When we value the light square bishop, when we shouldn't develop it. I gave you kind of a lot to think about. But just remember, like, in general, a lot of the move orders are less relevant than the structure, meaning if you get this position on move 5 or move 15, you know what your idea is. At some point, you're okay with breaking the tension and then liberating your pieces. Sometimes players play b5 and just play a6 right away before they even get the bishop out so that they can play c5 quickly. Sometimes players
Yeah.
play this structure, and actually, depending on the tactics, like it's not exactly here, but sometimes there's ideas where you can play e5, and then you end up winning your pawn back. I'm going to show you a cool line where, like, okay, at the end of this big trade, you're like, oh, what happened? But hey, guess what? They can't stop you from winning this pawn back. Suddenly you get it back, and guess what? The bishop now liberates itself out here. Not to that square, because I put the queen there randomly, but you get it. So look what I just showed you. I showed you the Cairo-Slav exchange with the e5 breakthrough. The point is, you can evaluate and place your pieces with both of those e5 and c5 breakthroughs in mind and play what comes with you. So I'm giving you sort of a, like I said, it's a map with a lot of flexibility. It's not a, if you don't play this move order, Fintan, you're screwed. That's not what this is. And that's just an important part of this. I wanted to point that out.
All right, let's do a couple of minutes quickly because I don't want to keep it too long. We'll just like do.
Okay, so I'm gonna play white. I'm gonna play white. You play black. Let's play e4. We'll do the Cairo Khan again.
Okay.
Just gonna do this one again.
Okay, I'm panicking now because this is.
You did
so
this
is
before?
I just no, we just go here. I'm not sure. Okay, so do I want to? Okay, no.
Yeah, good stuff. I'll play.
I know. I was just wondering if is it too slow to make the outpost, or not the outpost? The basically, is it too slow to push h6 straight away so that the bishop like will have that? Like, do I wait?
Yeah, I would say you don't need to, because if I haven't played h4 and h5, especially now that the trade's already been offered, then that would be kind of a wasted move.
Yeah. Okay.
It is a move that should be played more in direct reaction to h4 than it should be done prophylactically.
Okay. Do I want to go knight or pawn?
And it's good, because both are good. I just kind of wanted you to get a normal looking kind of position. A small challenge to see what you do, and then we're gonna back up.
Okay, I feel like did you just give me this exact situation? So hold on.
No, this is new. I'm just kind of challenging the tactics in the position to.
Takes. That's fine. So I just go. The one thing I'm always concerned about, like I'm not concerned about it right now, but like I get caught a lot of the time opening up the H file, and like it does like give me anxiety.
What do you mean? Like
obviously at this point it's not going to get opened up if I just push H6, but like I do find myself at times
getting worried about that. Well, the main thing with 94 is I was also attacking the bishop. So this move is bad because you lose the bishop. Yeah, and the reason I did it is because I wanted to point out something. You don't really need your bishop on d6 here to be active. You can also just put the bishop on e7, which in some ways is the safer square.
Yeah.
It prophylactically unpins the knight to the coming bishop g5. Mm-hmm. It actually keeps the queen with a little more pressure in the center instead of blocking her. And it avoids tactics like knight e4. And this is a good example of a piece that is less optically good, meaning it's less developed than on d6, where if you compare the squares, that's how beginners think about it, right? Put my piece on the most active square. So it's less optically active, but it's actually the better square for the piece, for the whole position considering, right? Because if you could take everybody's feelings into account, this is better for the queen's feelings. This is actually better for the knight's feelings because of the pin, right? And it's actually not that great of a piece here, despite it optically having squares. That's this whole concept is a big one. It's like it's a tipping point for people in chess, where they start to learn that for the position as a whole, my pieces need to be here, here, and here, even if optically this piece is less active than it would be on this square, right? So I want to just point that out, because very commonly in a Cairo-Slav structure, just taking a snapshot like this right here is a very good snapshot. Just take a snapshot of that, like with your face camera. You go.
No, like that makes it makes a whole lot of sense.
And why? Because it's safe. It unpins the knight, and they can't really stop you from liberating the position with c5, because it's I mean, if they do that, you'll take it. It would take several moves to try to do that, which would have mean they couldn't have played these other moves. It would have been a waste of time, right? Yeah. So this is a very good example of optically, you have less activity. Optically, those pieces look passive to beginners. Positionally, though, in this particular structure, black is completely equal. And you're going to play c5, and there's basically nothing I can do about it, and you're just going to, when that happens, it'll start looking like this. It'll be like, well, now who's better? Now you actually have liberated the whole position. You're totally fine.
I'll ask one more question, then let you go, because it's like 13 minutes. So if he, what happens if he pushes the pawn to d5?
Well, here you've got enough that you could just take it. In general, that is a good thing to keep in mind, though. In general, I like that you asked that, but in this particular position, it's not so good. I mean, you could also take him with the knight, probably.
Okay.
Right? I mean, you could...
Okay, thank you so much. I'll let you go.
But in general, that is a good point to keep in mind. Because if they had, like, for example, the pawn on c4, that might give you pause because of this and this. So you could be a little more patient, right? You could play, like, rook e8 and rook c8. You might prepare it a little bit. But overall, the idea has been firmly supplanted in your head. I basically just plugged you into the matrix, and now you're like...
And then I went and blundered my knight because I was too concentrated on like what I needed to move, not thinking that you'd be so rude to actually attack me like that. Anyway, thank you so much. And if we
I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't trying to embarrass you.
No, I'm only joking.
Anyway.
Everyone in my chat is saying it's a great lesson, and thank you so much for taking the time to help me get better and give me a fighting chance. And hopefully I'll be a more solid Slav and Cairo player by the next time we chat. But enjoy your lesson later on. I'm going to check it out and see what's going down. So thanks so much.
Well, I'm going to, real quick, I'm going to take away both our cameras here and mute my mic to my show just so I can say bye to you real quick. And then everyone on my chat, don't go anywhere because Waga's going to join really soon. That's Nicholas.
Will I raid you? Are you staying online?
Yeah, I'm going to stay online.
Okay. We don't have that many people there watching tonight, but every little helps. So.
Sure. Yeah. Please join me if you're going to raid me. You're saying that's cool. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to transition out, everybody, and mute the mic so that you can't hear me and Fintan talk, and he'll be raiding here.